What's up, guys? We're back with NCAA basketball picks for Wednesday, March 20th. The Tuesday games haven't finished, so unfortunately we can't recap those games at the time of recording. We have 2 NCAA tournament games today and a whole bunch of value in the NIT. Let's get into it. Smash the thumbs up button if you want to see our picks every day and subscribe to the channel. It's kind of wild, almost 80% of viewers aren't subscribed. It's 100% free and can keep you from missing these picks. Our videos are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. Click the link in the description to go over there and join our free email list and check out our top confidence plays on all the major sports. Stump the Spread is sponsoring a bracket challenge on ESPN. The link is located in the description of this video and in the free picks tab at StumpTheSpread.com. We're giving away $155 in total prizes, so get in there and check it out. Comment down below with your bets today and anything else you want to say about these picks, these videos, or anything you see here. I respond to every single comment and I'll give you my best advice on your picks to help us all cash some bets. Now let's dive into our first game of the day, Grambling versus Montana State in the Midwest Region First Four. The Grambling Tigers come into this game, they finished off things strong in the SWAC. They dominated in the regular season, going 14-4 in conference play. They were 20-14 overall this season. They went on a pretty solid run. They lost to Alcorn State to end their regular season, but then they turned right around and beat Alcorn State, beat BCU and Texas Southern to win the conference tournament and earn their NCAA bid. Contavious Dozier is their leading scorer. He's only putting up 13 points per game, and that's not too surprising given very much defense first style of team. Their rebounding numbers are pretty bad, but that's because they played a very slow pace. Their defensive numbers are decent, but not great, honestly, especially given that they're a team that's so low scoring and such a grinded out squad. Their offense puts up less than 70 points per game. They're ranked around 360th in the nation overall in offensive production. Not exactly the kind of team you want to write home about. They did find a way to succeed in this weak conference, but if you look back at their non-conference schedule, they were not very good at all. They were getting absolutely blown out in every single step-up game, losing by like 30 or more points. It was pretty bleak for them in the non-conference. They were playing actual good teams, but still, you would hope to see a little bit of a fight for this from this squad, even in the early season, and that is just not what you got. Their opponent in this one's going to be the Montana State Bobcats. They had a middling performance during the regular season in the Big Sky Conference, but they managed to win the conference tournament. They went only 9-9 in conference play and 17-17 overall, but they got hot at the right time. They won 5 of their last 6 games overall in their last 4 in a row. Robert Ford III is their leading scorer. He's a very solid option, shooting nearly 50% from the field, averaging 16 points per game. This team is very, very solid on offense. They put up a lot of points. Their rebounding numbers are a little bit concerning though. They're not a good team on the boards, but going up against a defense first and only team that is also bad on the boards, it shouldn't be too big of a mismatch here. Defensively, this team isn't great, but they're going up against a team that's terrible on offense. So go ahead. We're going to take Montana State minus 3.5 in this one. Neither one of these teams have significant against the spread trends that would push us one way or the other. So give us Montana State. They're the better offensive team. And in this case, I think offense is going to be the best offense. I don't think defense will win this matchup. Next up, we're hopping over to the NIT. We're looking at Appalachian State going up against Wake Forest. Appalachian State comes into this game fresh off of a loss against Arkansas State, a 2-point loss that effectively eliminated them from NCAA tournament contention. Had to be kind of a crushing blow for the Mountaineers. They finished off things in first place in the regular season in the Sun Belt Conference. Not the best conference in the world, but they had some decent teams there at the top like James Madison, Troy, Arkansas State. This Appalachian State squad can really score the ball. They're putting up 78.5 points per game. That is very reasonable. They don't really have big time leading scores. They depend more on ball movement and player movement to get off relatively open shots. Their offense runs pretty well. They're a very, very good rebounding team. I expect them to have some trouble, but not too much trouble competing on the glass against a team like Wake Forest. In their step-up games, we saw the Mountaineers have a pretty good time. They actually took down Auburn in a shocking upset very early in the season. That was really their best chance to get a premium win, and they jumped on it. They played great in that game. They found a way to get the job done and get the win. Appalachian State is 19-13 against the spread and 7-5 against the spread on the road. Those are pretty solid numbers, and they're a trend that we could definitely take into consideration. They're going up against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in this one, an ACC team that did not quite make the main draw. They decided to go ahead and accept that NIT invitation, even though some teams were declining them. Kind of not a very classy move in my opinion, but I understand if you're ticked off that the selection committee kind of screwed you over. Wake Forest comes into this game fresh off that loss against Pitt. They pretty much got blown out in that game. They faded pretty hard down the stretch. They lost 4 of their last 6 games overall, so you can't really be too upset that you didn't get included in the main draw. Wake Forest is a solid team. They do struggle on the glass a little bit. Their offense is very good. Hunter Salas is a monster, putting up 18 points per game, shooting almost 50% from the field. Kevin Miller is a great point guard. He's scoring 15 points a game to go along with his almost 4 assists. This team is pretty good, but they just really couldn't find a way in the ACC. The ACC is a conference I feel like is slightly overvalued right now, and I think they were slightly overvalued on Selection Sunday. We do have some interesting trends for Wake Forest. They're actually 12-4-1 against the spread playing at home, but but you have to wonder how much the Demon Deacons and their fan base are really going to care about this NIT game. This is a team that's, if not used to playing in the NCAA tournament, at least that's where they have their sights set pretty much every season. We're actually going to take Appalachian State +7 on the road in this one. I think their strength on the boards is going to help them out a lot. I think this game's going to mean a lot more to them than it means to Wake Forest. Winning an NIT trophy for Wake Forest, I don't even know if they hang that banner, but I know if you win the NIT as Appalachian State, that thing is going high and proud up there in the rafters. So give me Appalachian State +7, +7.5, whatever you can find out there. That's our lean in this one. Next up, we're looking at one of our favorite games on the slate. We've got Colorado going up against Boise State in the South Region First Four. Colorado comes in this game fresh off of a disappointing loss to suddenly red-hot Oregon. Colorado has been one of the craziest teams this season overall. They started things off red-hot, then cooled off in the middle of the season, and then finished things very strong, going on a 8-game winning streak before that tough loss to Oregon. Weirdly enough, during that winning streak, they actually beat Oregon by 4 points fairly decisively. Colorado's been pretty good at home in general this season. This game will be played on a neutral court, so that's not too big of a concern. This team has one of the brightest talents in the nation in KJ Simpson. He's putting up 20 points and 5 assists per game while shooting almost 50% from the field overall. Tristan Da Silva is also a monster. He's scoring 15 points per game and shooting almost 50% from the field. These players are elite. Colorado has legitimate NBA prospects on the roster. They are a team very much on the rise right now. They've been playing great. Coming into this game, they did lose that tough one to Oregon to get bounced out of the Pac-12 tournament, but all season long they were hovering around the top part of the conference. The Pac-12 is a pretty interesting conference. We'll see here in tournament play how good they really are. This team isn't amazing on defense, but they play at a very high pace and they're scoring almost 80 points per game. That could be kind of scary for a Boise State team who comes into this game fresh off a loss against New Mexico. They did get that win over number 21 San Diego State, but they weren't able to back it up and they got bounced out of the Mountain West tournament. It's going to be interesting to see how these Mountain West teams do. Some of them are getting a lot of hype, some of them aren't getting so much. I would definitely put Boise State in the category of teams not getting that much hype. This team is full of veteran players that have been in the college ranks for quite a while, so that's something to take into consideration. They're pretty solid on the boards. Their overall offensive production is pretty good. Their defense is good, but you have to look at where they had success and where they had problems this season. Also, this squad was very dependent on playing at home. Boise State was absolutely incredible when they're playing on their home court, but not so great when they had to leave home. Neutral court games could be tough for them. I don't think that's something that's really in their wheelhouse. I think they're going to struggle with the length and athleticism that Colorado can put out on the floor. Give me Colorado in this one. I think they find a way to get the job done. They're only -2.5. They only have to win this game by a 3-pointer. I think they find a way to do that. These big-time players are going to look to advance in this tournament and really put their mark on it. Give me Colorado in this one. Next up, we've got SMU going against Indiana State. We're back in the NIT for this one. SMU comes into this game fresh off of a loss, and they actually lost 5 out of the last 6 to close out this season. Not the kind of numbers you want to see if you're hoping to go into a tournament playing well. The Mustangs have been an elite rebounding team all season long. Their defense is pretty good, but it has not been good here down the stretch. It has not been good at all. They got blown out by Temple. They lost at UAB by 4 points. They barely managed to squeeze by ECU. This squad just has not been having a great time. They got absolutely shut down by USF and FAU earlier. Their last decent win was over Memphis, and that was weeks ago. This team just has not really been putting it together here at the end of the season. They don't really have great go-to scoring. They kind of struggle with offensive production overall, and they really have struggled with offensive production down the stretch. Their ball movement is pretty solid, but if they can't just smash their opponent on the boards, they're just not going to have a good time. Indiana, on the other hand, comes into this game fresh off of a tough loss to Drake. They're one of the biggest snubs for the NCAA tournament. They really should have probably found their way in my opinion. I think there are some squads that got in and maybe didn't really deserve it. This Sycamore squad is putting up almost 85 points per game in general. They've got Robbie Avila, better known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's a tragedy that we're not going to get to see him play in the big dance here. He's scoring almost 18 points per game, shooting nearly 55% from the field. He can do it all out there. He can pass the ball, he can shoot, he can rebound a little bit, although he's a little bit ground bound, but we'll forgive him for that. This team can rebound the ball reasonably well. They play great defense, which is kind of one of the hallmarks of most Missouri Valley Conference teams. Their assist numbers are very good. They really put up some offensive numbers, guys. This team can absolutely fill it up. Even in their loss to Drake, they scored 80 points. We saw all of their starters score in double figures. Their bench is a big concern, but I don't think we have to worry about that too much. They're going to be well rested coming into this game. Indiana State is 19-13-1 against the spread overall this season and 9-3-1 against the spread at home. I know 7 points seems like a lot, but give me Indiana State in this one. I think SMU is just faded way too hard down the stretch here. I don't think they're going to put up much of a fight, and we're going to see the Sycamores absolutely roll. Next up, we're looking at Loyola Chicago going against Bradley in the NIT first round. Loyola Chicago comes into this game fresh off of a loss, a 1 point heartbreaker against SBU that crushed their hopes of making it to the NCAA tournament. This team was very good all season long in the A10. They finished with a 15-3 conference record. They were 23-9 overall. They don't really have stellar leading scorers. That's not really their style. They're very good, though, defensively. Their rebounding is solid. Their assist numbers are what really jump out at you. Braden Norris is a great point guard, averaging 5 helpers to go along with almost 10 points per game. Miles Rubin is a very efficient scorer. He's a big man. He gives him some rebounding punch, and you know if he gets the ball in his hands, most of the time it's going in the basket. This team went on a solid run at the end of the season, beating Dayton, Davidson, and LaSalle. Getting knocked off by SBU by 1 point, that just had to be the biggest heartbreaker ever. This team definitely had aspirations of making the NCAA tournament. Those were crushed. They're going up against a Missouri Valley Conference opponent in the Bradley Braves. Bradley comes into this game. They kind of stumbled at the end of the season, losing to Drake twice. Drake's who bounced them out of the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. This team is very good defensively. It's kind of one of the hallmarks of Missouri Valley Conference teams, but I would actually say I'm throwing the term very good around a little bit loosely here. They're not good on the boards, which is a big concern in this game, going up against the Loyola Chicago team that can definitely rebound the ball. The Missouri Valley, I feel like, was in a down year a little bit. They did have 2 very good teams at the top in Indiana State and Drake, but I think Bradley really belongs down there with the likes of Belmont, Northern Iowa, and Southern Illinois. They're just not that good of a team. Connor Hickman, I guess, is a solid scorer, but 14 points a game isn't really going to get me going. I'm really more worried about Duke Green. He's their point guard. He's pretty good. He's putting up 4 assists and 14 points per game, but their rebounding problems really concern me, and I don't think their defense is going to hold up that well against an athletic Loyola Chicago team. Give me Loyola Chicago. They're 7-4 against the spread on the road. They're getting 4 points in this game. I feel like the Ramblers find a way to at least keep this close, if not win it straight up. Staying in the NIT for this one, we're looking at the San Francisco Dons taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. San Francisco did not have too bad of a time in the WCC, but they were very much well below the level of St. Mary's and Gonzaga. San Francisco finished the season with 11-5 conference record and a 23-10 record overall. They lost to Gonzaga twice at the end of the season. They lost to St. Mary's. They didn't manage to beat either one of those teams during the regular season. Those would have been their real step-up opportunities. They were not able to cash in on those. This team is absolutely terrible on the boards. They do play some relatively solid defense, so that's something, but even though their offense is very, very good, you have to be able to rebound the ball. If you can't finish off those defensive possessions with a rebound, it really kind of doesn't count at all. Jonathan Mogbo is a very solid leading scorer. He's only scoring 14 points per game, but he's making nearly 65% of his attempts from the field. That's absolutely crazy. Marcus Williams is a very solid point guard, but the question for this team is going to be, can they compete athletically with Cincinnati? The Bearcats come into this game. They closed out their season pretty well, winning 3 of their last 4, but they were clearly not able to hang with Baylor. They lost that game by 12 points to get bounced out of the Big 12 tournament. This team has been solid this season. They did finish things up in the bottom half of the conference, but they had 7 conference wins, and in the Big 12, that's not nothing. This squad doesn't really depend on any one leading scorer. They absolutely destroy opponents on the boards, though, with their length and athleticism. This team is very good on defense. They score the ball well enough. They find offensive by committee really is kind of their go-to way to do it. Day Thomas is a very solid point guard. Overall, this Bearcats team is very talented. I expect them to care a little bit about this game. Like, I don't think they really thought they were going to make the NCAA tournament, at least up till like 3/4 of the way through the regular season. They should have pretty much known this wasn't going to be part of their journey. Cincinnati is not amazing against the spread at home, but they're not terrible. They're 9-10 against the spread, playing on their home court, and when you're used to going against amazing teams from this power conference, I don't think we should feel too bad about that. Give me Cincinnati -6 in this one. I think they find a way to dominate the boards against San Francisco, and they're going to score the ball one way or the other. Next up, we're looking at VCU going against Villanova in the NIT tournament. VCU comes into this game fresh off a loss at Duquesne. They were one of the victims of that crazy Duquesne run. VCU's been an interesting team all season long. They did pretty well in the A10, but they were clearly a couple steps below teams like Richmond and Chicago, and maybe even Dayton, although I think Dayton has been insanely overvalued pretty much all season long. Max Shugla is their leading scorer. He's a solid player. He's a very good point guard. He puts up assist numbers, scoring numbers. He's definitely a plus level player, but the rest of the squad doesn't really fill me with too much optimism. They struggle a little bit on offense. They're only averaging around 70 points per game, which isn't great. Their rebounding numbers are very middle of the road. I expect them to struggle on the boards in this one quite a bit. And while their defense is good, their defense was good going against teams like George Washington, St. Louis, Davidson. When you're getting to play against the bottom of the A10 and the middle of the A10, it kind of outweighs the fact that you had to play against Richmond, Loyola, and Dayton a lot. So I'm not really seeing too much potential from VCU in this one. They're going against a Villanova team that could be an interesting one. We have to figure out whether or not they're going to really be motivated for this game. Villanova is definitely a squad that's used to playing the NCAA tournament. Like, the NIT is not really their jam. I almost feel like this might be something of a punishment from their coaching staff, making their players play in this tournament that's definitely a a level down from what they expected to be taking part in this season, although with the way things went, you can see why the selection committee left them out. They did have some big wins, they had some upset wins, but man, you can't finish things off 18 and 15 and really think that you're going to make it into the big dance. Eric Dixon is a very solid scorer. This team is good on the boards. They don't really score the ball too well though, and their defense can be a little bit up and down. They did keep things very close against Creighton and against Marquette there at the end of the season, but those were games they were feeling like if they would have won, they could have probably had a case to make the NCAA tournament. So it's really difficult in this one to gauge their intensity level, like how hard is this team really going to be playing. I definitely think VCU will care more about this game than Villanova. However, Villanova is 9-6 against the spread at home, but we see VCU is 7-2 against the spread on the road. This is a tough one, guys. It's not going to be one of my biggest bets of the day. We're going to go ahead and side with VCU plus 6.5 or 7, whatever you can find out there. I think they find a way to at least keep this game close, but like I said, this won't be one of my bigger bets of the day. It's just a lean. Last but not least, we're going to look at UNLV going up against Princeton. UNLV comes into this game fresh off of a loss to San Diego State. They got bounced out of the Mountain 10 tournament pretty quickly. The Rebels have been a good team. Playing through a tough Mountain West schedule is nothing to turn your nose up at. However, they do have some weaknesses, like this is not a very good rebounding team. That's a concern for them. Dedan Thomas Jr. is leading the way for them with 14 points per game, but he's only shooting 45% from the field. He is a very solid point guard though. He's moving the ball well. He's putting up 5.2 assists per game. A very reasonable number. This offense though really hasn't gotten it going. It's not up to the level of some of the teams that were really killing it in the Mountain West. They're only scoring 73 points per game. Their defense is good but not amazing. They did keep things competitive with Nevada and San Diego State there at the end of the regular season. They do have some solid wins if you look back over their conference schedule, but they also have some tough losses. Whether or not this was really a snub will kind of be decided by how well the teams who actually made it into the main draw from the Mountain West do. UNLV is a very solid 19-10 against the spread and 7-3 against the spread on the road. They're taking on the Princeton Tigers, the team from the Ivy League who won the regular season crown but were not able to finish it off with a tournament victory as they fell victim to Brown, who went on that absolutely psychotic run. Princeton has been a very good team all season long. They are terrible on the boards as well, but their offense and their defensive play make up for it. Princeton is a very good offensive team led by Xavier Lee and is 17 points on 46% shooting from the field. He's also putting up around 4 assists per game. He's also got Caden Pierce there right along with him, scoring 16 points per game on shooting almost 55% from the field. Those are pretty crazy numbers. Princeton is 6-4 against the spread playing at home. This is a very tough game. We see Princeton minus 2.5 in this one. I'm not 100% sure how to cap this game. I really think we see a solid game from Princeton, but will it be enough for them to win and cover? I think playing on their home court, they find a way to get the job done. I think Princeton's very disappointed they didn't make the big dance and will kind of be out for revenge in this one. I think NIT games are something that the Ivy League schools probably care about as they end up in the NIT quite a bit. So give me Princeton minus 2.5 in this one. That's all the games for today. Hit that like button for good luck on all your bets today and subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com and to sign up for our bracket challenge. We'll see you guys tomorrow for more NCAA basketball action.